They're hilarious. I closed my door so my dog or my cat wouldn't leap in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us for Community Conversation with Roberta Phillips. Our guest today is Gregory McCarthy, Senior Vice President for Community Engagement with the Washington Nationals. Thanks again for joining us. Roberta, take it away.
Hi, Gregory. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what you do. So as Nestor said, you are the Senior Executive for Community Engagement with the Washington Nationals. And I looked at your mission because I've been interested in mission statements. And your mission supports the academic, wellness, and character development for children. What does this mean to you?
Well, for us as a baseball team, we want to use the sport that we love so much to help kids grow. And we think baseball in particular really lends itself to character development. It's about teamwork. It's about dedication. It's about stick-to-itiveness. And so we're very keen on using the sport as a athletic means, but also an academic means to get children excited about being well, to get children excited about learning. And to us, that means starting a course in children that need the help the most. And we hope that after a while, after being exposed to baseball through athletics and academics, perhaps, they might have the joys of a sport that the rest of us have in our adulthood. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's great. I know as a kid, I played a lot of sports. I'm one of 8 children, but with 3 brothers. So I was always the fourth, quote unquote, guy for the team, but also just growing up playing athletics, a lot of team sports. And I think especially when I got to middle school and high school, it was very important for things like discipline and perseverance and, all those character traits that I think we want to instill in our kids.
Absolutely.
That it's okay to make mistakes, that winning isn't everything, although, I like to win.
It's better than losing, for sure.
It's better than losing. But if you do it as a team, that's what the thrill is. And I understand that your community engagement has 3 main pillars. So the first is education. And of course, we're thrilled to be part of the summer reading sponsored by the Nationals this year. The second is grant-owned schools, the second is youth baseball and softball, and the third is military. So can you talk a little bit about what your organization does in each one of those realms?
Sure. I'll start with the latter one first, with the military. So we basically want to do 2 things. We want to provide our fans a way of thanking the military and their families, let's not forget the families, for their service for our country, but also find a way to help the military who are often, away from home and going through other difficulties with their job that it presents, making them feel welcome and giving them good experiences. So we do a lot of traditions at the park. We have the traditional 3rd inning salute, and we have a lot of pageantry, but we also do a lot of things on the bases where we try to actually reach the soldiers and the airmen, the sailors, the Marines, and their families. So we outfit their kids with uniforms. We outfit the adult teams there with uniforms. We send speakers out. We do something with their libraries on base like we do with you, but we also do a lot of professional engagement. So we sit down, we match members of the military with our staff on our team, and we have them talk about what the differences and the similarities are about being a civilian and being a military leadership and the like. And it's a very gratifying experience. And we joke, God's not going to judge us at the end of the day about the experiences that we give generals and admirals. He's going to want to know, what did you do for the junior enlisted personnel who might be in the barracks on the base, who don't have other opportunities to get out. And so we have a lot of programs to bring them to games. Sometimes we call it date night. We'll give them 2 tickets and say, ask a buddy or a boyfriend or a girlfriend to come along. And so we're very eager in giving those junior enlisted people a great experience that they certainly deserve. And in the area of youth baseball, it makes sense. Obviously, it's a baseball team. We really want to promote the sport. And we found over time that there are a lot of challenges. In some areas, usually the more affluent areas, they have a lot of kids that want to play, but not enough fields. And then in other parts of our region, they have gorgeous fields, but kids haven't connected with the game for one reason or another. And sometimes it's because baseball's not sexy. We're a football town. We're a basketball city or something. And so we have to work on that. And sometimes it's because the adults themselves didn't grow up with baseball. So starting a little league, managing a little league, it's quite an enterprise, actually. So we spend a lot of time helping train adults to actually get the leagues up and running. And the single biggest program we have in that regard is something called Team Up, which is there are 29 leagues in the region. In fact, recently we added Prince George's RBI, which is about 1,000 kids, and they wear actually Nats uniforms when they play. So we have 11 different varieties of uniforms, 3 different varieties of caps, and so no two teams will have identical clothes on when they play. And what we've heard is that it makes the kids, one, feel equal. So there's no affluent league, there's no non-affluent league with different kinds of uniforms. They all look the same, and it's a great quality uniform. But it gives them a sense of unity, that we're all playing this together. So we have special games at the ballpark where they come, and we send speakers out to deal with them, and then we speak with them. And then we also train the adults there. So that's our marquee program there. And then in the area of education, we have Grand Slam schools where we've adopted schools, and basically it's a STEM program where we train the teachers, usually 4th and 5th grade teachers, to make science and math a little bit more interesting, perhaps through baseball focus, through baseball exercises. We send the mascots out for school assemblies, and then we have occasionally field trips to our baseball academy where we actually let the kids run on the baseball diamond. Last year, we'd love to come to Prince George's County with this. At one point, we had something called a Cornerstones event where we had every single DCPS, District of Columbia Public Schools, first grader at the ballpark for a whole morning for lectures and games and skits. And I've learned a lot about organizing young kids. We had 3,200 kids run the bases, school by school. And we learned a lot about lining kids up, 3,200 of them.
It's like herding cats, is it not?
It was a challenge, but their enthusiasm and their excitement was so palpable. And I would say probably 80% of them had never been in our ballpark before or even on a field. So being able to run and experience that stuff and see themselves on the big screen when they came over home plate was unforgettable for them. So we had to cancel it this year, unfortunately, due to COVID, but we're looking to ramp that up. But I should say DCPS spent the 3 previous months in the Cornerstone Project using baseball as an American icon. So they learned about the history of baseball. They learned about how it started. They learned about the Negro Leagues and why we had the Negro Leagues and why the Negro Leagues ended, and baseball as a social institution. And then we even did stuff like we have our racing presidents as our mascots, the 4 presidents from Mount Rushmore. So they learned a lot about what the racing presidents did while they were in office, for example. So it was an educational experience as well as a get out and run the bases experience. It was great.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you and I can connect the right people together to make this happen in Prince George's County.
And then I think
that would be awesome. In fact, I remember Father, he would listen. Go ahead.
I missed that question.
Oh, I was just going to say an anecdote that my grandfather used to watch baseball without the sound on because he wanted to listen to opera. But you couldn't turn either one of those devices off, the radio or the television. So, I grew up with baseball for sure.
And lastly, I'll just mention really our premier program is our summer reading program, which we started about 5 years ago with District of Columbia Public Library, and we've expanded to Arlington, and now we're very happy this year with Prince George's County. And basically, that's another way of using our sport and the great social institution of baseball to encourage kids to be good citizens and to learn and to bring families together. So we're helping you promote your summer reading program through incentive. This year, again, we had to scale it back a bit because of COVID, but next year, God willing, we'll be up back to normal. and we'll be having your kids at the ballpark being recognized for their reading. And we think, someone once said to me when I was talking to DC about the program, so you're going to bribe kids to read? And I said, absolutely, yes, whatever it takes. And so what we found, or especially a lot of the parents said to us, is that notion that the kids were earning prizes by the amount of time they read, not only helped them be better scholars and help their literacy levels, but was a sense of palpable achievement and accomplishment that added to their character. So we were delighted with that. So we look forward to having a lot of kids from your county earning their rewards this year. And it won't be for a game this year, after all, it'll be for a game next year. And they're doing the same again next year.
Yeah, that's great. And I know you were also a part of an all-star field at Walker Mill Rec Center. Okay.
That's right. So when we had the All-Star game in 2018, we basically gave some money and worked on a project with your county Parks and Rec department to upgrade the field at Walker Mill. So we made it into a world-class youth baseball field with a wonderful a real adult scoreboard with our logo on it and the All-Star logo and the lights and the flashing things and the numbers. And then this year, like I said, your RBI program is all wearing Nationals uniforms. So we need to do more in Prince George's County, quite frankly. As I look around the region and our ballpark is in the middle, our weak spot is Prince George's County in terms of a fan base. So we're trying to address that by, like I said, doing the field and now the summer reading program and now the uniforms. And I think it goes back to a problem that Major League Baseball has articulated for a while is a lack of connectivity between African American youth and our sport. So we need to work harder to make that link stronger, to make baseball a more attractive sport for African American kids. And so if we can give them a great field to play on, have them wear fancy, nice uniforms, and then maybe in the summer read about it or something, or have that connection, that's going to help. And across the country, we're not the only region that faces this. So we need to work harder. I know the league has been trying to get more African American players as role models. There's some progress, but we're not anywhere near where we need to be. So we're dedicating extra efforts to that. And I think we need to have more nights with music and cultural things that are more attractive to the African American community. And so we're going to be doing more of that. We want them in our seats. And so when I look at our seats, I'm thinking there's fewer kids, there's fewer customers actually there. That's not good for the team and it's not good for the region. So we're going to be working on that. Yeah.
Well, Prince George County, as you know, is a majority money. So that is a good target.
Yes. Well, I tell my bosses, it's a community engagement proposition. It's also a business proposition. The most affluent African American community in the country probably is in Prince George's County, and they're spending their money elsewhere. And we like to have them in our park spending the money.
Sure.
But we mostly want to aim children, and especially underserved children, and that's our target. So we look forward to lots more people from the county coming to our ballpark.
Do you find that transportation is perchance an issue?
Yes.
Getting to the games?
Mostly with groups of kids and people of lower incomes. Thank God we are on a subway, the metro station, so that's easy. But we found that when the kids redeem the prizes for the summer reading, or we have the little leagues out, the parents are leery about how the kids are going to get there, and getting a bus together is difficult, and then parking buses at the ballpark is difficult. So when we have a dedicated game, we've actually got permission from the city to basically make one of the streets next to the ballpark a bus parking lot, and that helps. So we've also become experts at bus marshaling, which is almost as challenging as kid marshaling sometimes. But it's good work. It's good work.
Yeah. And so also you were involved with the DC and PGC Spelling Bee with on-field recognition.
Right. So we work a lot with the Washington Informer. Denise Rolark Barnes is an old friend of mine, actually. So we're happy to work with them a lot. And they put on the bees. And so we've been promoting the bee in Prince George's County and the district for years. And kids that do well or win come to the ballpark, and we have a special ceremony for them pregame. And then we have little things that appear in the Washington Informer along the way, encouraging them. So yeah, we're very, very proud of that.
Absolutely. So this is our first year working with the Washington Nationals. And of course, we couldn't be more pleased with how Summer at Your Library has gone, especially since we had to migrate to a virtual platform. Where do you hope this partnership will continue in the future?
Well, we'd like to obviously grow it. So I would like to work with you. And again, this year is difficult because it's so not normal. But I'd like to see, did our alliance with you this year move your numbers? So, did we help motivate kids to join and read? And if not, why? And what can we do differently? We'd also like to grow it into having a little display in each of your branches of baseball books for kids and adults. And then coming up with a program where we have perhaps some adult reading sessions where we have books about, baseball in Washington or the Negro Leagues as a good discussion topic and engage people in our sport that way. The nice thing about that is we can do that year round. So even after the season's over, if kids and adults want to come for discussion groups about baseball history or Negro Leagues history, we can do that. And we're looking forward to expanding that.
So one of the things I was interested in too is I saw recently in Major League Baseball that we now have a woman who is on the field coaching.
Yes.
So that's really exciting. And that might be an avenue for girls and even careers, like people think if Major League Baseball, they think you have to be a player. But obviously there's so many things that happen behind the scenes to make this organization operate. And I think that's something teens might not know about. How do I take my love of sports and make it into a career, even if I'm not a premier athlete? That's right. Very good point. In fact, I meet young people a lot who want to get into sports, and I have a game with them. I give them a copy of the telephone directory for the team. And I say, if you notice, there's not a sports department here. We have communications people, we have marketing people, we have sales people, we have accountants, we have community relations people, we have legal people, we have business strategy people, we have broadcasting people. So there's a lot of careers that you can take here. And we work actually with the professional hospitality academies at Ballou High School, Czech High School, and Wilson High School here in the district. And we try to say to the kids just that, don't just get a summer job here. You want to aspire to own the team eventually, Right. And it's broadcasting, and most of our positions are in sales and business marketing. So ground yourself in that. And yes, we would love people to know. And you can still love the game and be close to the game. Sure. You don't have to be in a jock, if you will, or a guy, for example, or into sabermetrics. Yeah. And even just the logistics, I have a nephew who got his degree in agronomy, and he's a groundskeeper for golf course. He loves golfing. And so this was his way. He wasn't going to be a professional golfer, but his golf course has professional tours and he gets to meet the players. And, so again, and it's very science-based. So that tie-them idea, which I think is interesting, just to do some exploration of careers that, people don't know about. And again, internships is really great. What's been the response to the players to be involved in Summer at Your Library with our group? The players, believe it or not, have a tough life. They have about 7 or 8 days off from February through September. They're on the road half the time. And when they have a game at 7 o'clock, they've got to be at the ballpark around 2. They'll usually have it. They never have Saturday or Sunday off during the season. So their time is quite limited. Right. And I know Sean Doolittle and Eric Thames have done videos, I think, that you all have used, reaching out. Had we been, I keep on saying this, had we had a normal season,
we would have sent one of them out to help you launch the program and have a big read-in with the kids. When we've done that in the district in Arlington, it's been a huge event with hundreds of kids and families showing up. Sean Doolittle has a particular interest in literacy and reading. He's a bibliophile.
Okay.
And whenever he goes, he actually blogs about it. Whenever he goes to a new city during his spare time, he finds the independent bookstores. And he's very good, and he and his wife, Erin, about tweeting to kids, especially about the importance of reading. So he's a great ambassador. And then Eric Thames, this is his first year with us. He has kids. He reads to them, and he feels it's his way of giving back. So next year, we'll have them in your branches spreading the word about reading.
That's awesome. So, we're speaking a little bit about, how the pandemic is affecting our community and organizations. Have you just had to move a lot of things virtual like everyone else, or are things you're just ramping up for the next year, or what kind of things have happened with your organization?
Yes, that's right. And I with the military and education, it's harder with youth baseball, but we've actually had players do tips for kids about how to do drills and stay in shape and things like that. But yes, and it's hard because so much of the emotional connection somebody is going to make to a sport is going to be galvanized by coming to a game and experiencing the beautiful grass and the sights and the sounds and the hot dog and the and stuff. And so without that, it's been difficult. So we're kind of regrouping and doubling down and going back to our core partners and working with them. And I think one of the things we've discovered through By Necessity is with the great national interest in the questions of race relations and equity in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, we've been able to use the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues as a way to talk about how this country can grapple with questions of racial equity here in the country. Because the Negro Leagues is an incredible American story born out of a terrible injustice and sadness, but people who love the sport so much galvanized and created their own league, created some of the best baseball traditions our country has ever seen, the best players. People don't know. Do you know the origin of night baseball?
No, I don't.
The Negro Leagues teams were not allowed to use the white fields. So they had to improvise and come up with lights. And that's how the tradition of night baseball and lighted fields started, was the Negro Leagues' ingenuity and in just responding to that type of discrimination and hatred, but making the best of it by having night baseball. And now, guess what? 50 years later, we all benefit from night baseball. So there are all these stories about economic empowerment and the like, but also the unfinished business of a job that's still somewhat undone, and how baseball can contribute to that, and how baseball is failing in that as well. So we're having a lot of discussion groups and training of adults of how to engage kids in discussions around the Negro Leagues centennial anniversary.
Yeah. National championship to have this COVID, because you had so much momentum and energy. Can you tell us a little bit about how that elevated your organization? Because what an accomplishment.
Last year, I have to say, was an extraordinary experience to come from virtually last place at the end of May to come back against all the odds, 5 elimination game winnings, and come back from behind winnings in the All-Star game, in the World Series, losing every home game, going to Houston as the underdog and coming from behind in both games. It was an epic story. So we were supposed to come back and celebrate that with our fans and the region, have a traditional ring ceremony, have the traditional raising of the pennant. So we weren't able to do that. And we're sorry for our players, but mostly for our fans, because they certainly earned it. We've tried to do stuff virtually, but it hasn't been the same as being able to engage people. So yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but it was an epic story. And you've seen Tom Boswell in the Post write about how utterly amazing it was against all the odds. So our lesson for our kids is never give up, fight on. And so our manager, Davey Martinez, says, go 1-0 every day. And that's what he told our players last year when we were 19-31 in last place. Just win today. And so for our kids, that's a great life lesson.
Yeah, so we have a question from YouTube, and you kind of referred to it. This person says, I was wondering if the Nationals are working on a program related to just what you said, the NBL Centennial Celebration.
Yeah, so this Sunday, the 16th of August, is the official MLB game to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Negro League. So unfortunately, we're on the road, so we won't be able to do a lot of stuff DC focused. But we did provide MLB with a lot of graphics and vignettes about Homestead Grays players, the Washington team. So I encourage everybody to tune in on Sunday for the game. It's going to have the celebration theme throughout. And then again, we are doing these discussion groups. So we had a very interesting Zoom call with the heads of our 29 leagues. And we had a Black Studies scholar who's talked about the history of the Negro Leagues. We gave them a 2-page flyer, and then we had some discussion questions. And we said, how can you go forward and bring your leagues together, either socially distant, safely, or virtually, and talk about this? This is a moment of inflection in our country that's unlike anything else. And they're baseball players, and they ought to understand baseball's history with race, which is inspirational on one level, but also instructional about how our country is so flawed sometimes. And it's a great story for our kids to learn. So we've gotten great feedback from a few of the leagues. They've discussed this with their kids. And, it's a basic question of, especially for kids, for white kids, which is, okay, how would you feel playing at a ballpark or going to a ballpark where your grandpa wasn't allowed? How would you feel?
Well,
anyway, so it's a great way to say to kids, think about this. You, as baseball players, you ought to think about this.
Well, and it'd be a great program to offer to the public too, to educate them about the NBL and just to offer the same kind of forum that we have now, but with perhaps some speakers or some. Yeah.
We're trying to assemble a speakers bureau, if you will, right. And our permanent customers are the library. So we love to have libraries, if they have adult reading or adult education programs, avail themselves of this. And we also have been to all the military bases in the region, and we said, you have regular leadership courses. Why don't you augment that with a lecture on the history of the Negro Leagues and how the Black community led itself, and then how the white community eventually got into integration and made that happen, but how it's been a well-intentioned but not yet perfect leadership role to date, and what that means for, as an example, for our military officers to look at, and the military itself as an institution. And so we've gotten a couple of the base commanders that said they're going to do that. So we're perfecting that fact sheet and the Speakers Bureau concept now.
Well, let us know. We will be happy to facilitate or promote, or we're on it, because I think this is something that's really an interesting topic. And again, as you said, the library PGCMLS is really reflecting on equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism. We had a great program with Dr. Ibram Kendi on how to be an anti-racist. So all of these things.
He's famous. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have Jason Reynolds coming up. So there's a lot of real great synergy. And I think this story, it kind of reminds me of when the movie Hidden Figures came out, and nobody knew about all of the people, the women engineers, African-American, that were behind this whole space program. So these untold stories are just gems.
I'm a history buff. So another untold story of the Negro Leagues is there were female players.
Oh, interesting.
Including some pretty good ones. And there was a pitcher called Mamie Peanut Johnson, who had a fastball that nobody could hit. And she actually played, I think, for the Homestead Grays for a bit. But more importantly, she's a resident of the city. So there's a field named after her in Ward 6 at Rosedale Community Center. And so we were able to work with her when she was around. And it's a great story. But there were female players. Absolutely. It's a great story.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is a great story. What else would you like our customers who listen to this community conversation, what else do you want them to know about your organization? You're obviously very passionate about what you do and how the organization engages with the community. Is there some other things you'd just like to talk about that we haven't covered?
Well, I think I alluded to it before. Baseball is a lot of things. It's a business, right? Of course, we need to break even. We need to pay players. We're also an economic development tool, especially for the District of Columbia and the neighborhoods around the ballpark. But it's been said often, it's also a social institution. Mm-hmm. The nature of the game is there are 82 of them in terms of home games. They're slow. You can arrive late. You can talk to your people on either side. And so it's very important that baseball, I think, be enjoyed by as many people as possible in the region, because it has benefits that go beyond just what's ever happening on the field. We have $5 tickets every game. We have 500 seats that are $5 tickets. So it's an affordable enterprise for almost any family. And we would like to work more and get people to come. And again, I think even if you're not a baseball fan, I would say a baseball fan yet, but even if you're not a baseball fan, it's a great experience to bring your family. The field is so beautiful. The national anthem, we have on the concourse history lessons about the history of baseball in the city. And so I really look forward to working with institutions like your library system in Prince George's County and the RBI in the county and the rec department to get more people from the county to come, because it's a great American institution. It's a sport that we invented, as a country, and so we definitely look forward to having more people from the county come to the ballpark.
Yeah, and I think people will be really hungry for it once we have a chance to gather again. This isolation is a big deal. So another question came from YouTube, following up how the current pandemic has impacted the sports world. What's the hardest part about managing a department that has to adapt or change their typical programming?
Well, like I said before, so much of the impact of what we do is baseball related, either coming on the field prior to a game or having your group be honored on the field. Being able to see the fans in the ballpark, having the players occasionally go out to the community. So we've had to curtail that, and baseball has become, I think, a little bit more remote for people. And that's, let's face it, it's less exciting. So much of what we did with children was experiential. So it was run around the bases at your school and measure speed, or we gave teachers, for example, the giant. For the what do you call it, a slingshot to fling water balloons to look at the arc of a ball. You can't do that anymore. So it's hard to translate the excitement and the movement of our sport by Zoom calls. Right. So we tried that, and then especially for our military, so much of what they experienced was coming to the park and being honored, having people clap for them. And so not quite the same experience to do that online,
Sure. Yeah. And I noticed some other sports are got this like bubble mentality thing happening. I think, and basketball or football's moving towards that. Is that something the Major League Baseball would consider?
Baseball did not adopt that. So for a number of reasons. One is we have more teams. Fields are more land intensive, labor, weather driven, and then all the places where, because we're outdoors, having a bubble in Florida or Texas or Arizona is difficult. for climate. So we have the system now where we're having the teams travel like they kind of normally would, but with severe constrictions in terms of interfacing both at the ballpark and then outside of the ballpark. We've had a couple of teams have some outbreaks, and it's caused some havoc in our schedule, but hopefully we can finish the season without any more of that.
Yeah, and of course, baseball does lend itself a little bit more to social distancing than football might.
Yeah.
You're not hitting anybody, so
and we're also outdoors. So
right, sure.
you know, if and when we can bring fans back, it's a great plus that we're outdoors as opposed to being in an indoor arena.
Sure.
So God willing, we'll be back there next year.
Great. I'm going to ask if there's any more questions for Gregory. Just give a few minutes and see if there are. I have to, as a librarian, I can't let this opportunity to ask you what you're reading go by.
Well, I am a history buff. So I read a presidential biography every couple of weeks, and I intersperse it with different other personalities. So my last bio was actually President John Tyler, who I guess I'm allowed to have opinions. He was a scoundrel. I got to say that he was a flawed man, to say the very least. And then after that I read Charles de Gaulle. But I'm actually now reading one of the most interesting bios of Muhammad Ali, who I appreciate him now as much as an entertainer as a great sportsman. But his role in the civil rights movement and how he expressed how he expressed the aspirations of Black freedom and Black empowerment, or a contrast, for example, to Dr. King's, but complemented it so much also. And it seems to me like America really benefited from having many different kinds of expression and pushing the civil rights movement to the fore, like we have today. And so he was an incredible athlete and an interesting personality. And then just parenthetically, so he was he lived in a Black community in Louisville and had a, relatively speaking, especially in the South, a comfortable middle-class Black upbringing with all the challenges that had in that day. But he and his brother went to a film one day. And while they were in the film, his bicycle was stolen. And he went to a policeman afterwards, and a white policeman, and said, "Can you help me? My bike is stolen." And the policeman said, "Well, I'm going off duty right now. I'll look into it. Come to my second job at night and I'll tell you about it." Well, his second job at night was running a boxing gym. And so Ali went there to find out the bike was gone forever. But the guy said to him, "Would you like to stick around and learn how to box?" And that's how it started. So it's a great story. It's a great story.
Yeah. Right now I'm reading Stacey Abrams, grab it. Our Time Is Now, which is it's really about voting rights, and there's again lots of history. So if you're history, but I would recommend it. And just talking about where they started, where African Americans and women, for that matter, started with voting rights, where we are now, how what's happening, and which of course is very timely with an election coming up, as you well know, being in DC.
Right. So speaking of being in DC, I serve as president of the Board of Trustees of the DC Public Library in my civic job. And we're about to open up next month our new flagship Martin Luther King Library downtown, which is a gorgeous remake. It's a 250,000 square feet. It's a refurbishment of an existing historical landmark. But I've had the pleasure of helping open and remodel about 13 of our 25 branch libraries. And I am such a believer in libraries as community anchors. And when I was growing up, I'm older than you, but perhaps when you were growing up as well, libraries were these quiet places where you went and it was kind of a reverent place. And now, we have maker space, we have studios, we have, community rooms, and our libraries in DC are more and more popular every day. and we have people going, for very important internet connections and the like. And we have a lot of services that we provide there, links to the community. And so I'm just a big believer in libraries, and I'm very proud of what we're doing here in the district.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope to see the new MLK library soon. Our library is also experiencing growth. We're hoping to design a new library with a culinary teaching. We have a very prominent dream lab in our Fairmont
really are fun, aren't
Heights library. Yeah, they're just great. I mean, there's so many things that people can learn in a library. It's really more about social impact than a transactional. I mean, before it was here's your book and have a nice day. And now people are meeting there. Small business people are getting together. It's networking, it's connections, it's social services.
And
and then of course, rich author arts programs.
And I'm particularly saddened right now, though, by the closure of schools and other institutions has really highlighted the digital divide that we have in the country. And for so many people, the libraries are through the internet, are their entree to the world. And whether it's job training and resume development or the like. And so to have to shut down so many of our libraries, and now we're beginning to crank them open a little bit now, is important. But it highlighted the absolutely critical role of libraries in the digital world. And like I said before, when people say about, are you going to bribe kids to read? Yes, is the answer. But people say, well, a library is supposed to be about books and literacy. Why are you having yoga classes? And why are you having a sound studio? And why do you have a tool? You can check out power tools. And we say, that's the idea. You get people into the library for whatever reason you can to attract them. They get a library card, and then that is their passport to reading and literacy in the future. But in this day and age, you've got to connect, especially with kids. You've got to make it relevant. So whether it's, gaming videos or the like, get them in the building, get them comfortable with the library, tell them how to use a card. There are nice adults in the building. They're going to take care of you, but it's important to make it really interesting for kids. And so they're community hubs.
Yes, absolutely. And the library does such a great job at building relationships. We are the most trusted government entity, so we need to really use that platform, like you said, to level the playing field, to help with e-learning, to support our schools, our economic growth. All of those things are the reasons that libraries become anchors in every community. They're just a great leveling agency. And we also welcome everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, you are welcome in the library. So
make me a promise. When you're open, invite me out for a tour of your 3 favorite branches, and I'll do the same here in the district.
That'd be great. I love it. I would appreciate that.
Be fun.
I'm going to ask if there's any more questions for Mr. McCarthy, and we'll just do a quick couple minutes. I'd like to thank everybody. Somebody said they learned a lot about baseball today, which is always good.
Absolutely.
It's really important for us community members to share our resources, to get the word out about everything that the DMV has to offer, which is just a ton. So we hope that we can be seeing you soon at the baseball field. We'll keep our fingers crossed for everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us and for partnering with PGCMLS for our summer reading.
And there's still a week left in your program, so
correct.
It's not too late for kids to sign up, right?
It's never too late, and there's never too late. Right.
Never too late.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.